Well, good morning, Three Rivers. Thankful to be with you again this week in the midst of the coronavirus and the new stay-at-home measures that we've been not getting so used to, but of course probably fatigued by. And today I'm honored to be back with you with a different topic than we've been addressing in some of our WIREDx events. I'm really grateful for the opportunity to be able to talk specifically today about how to navigate working from home with kids, and when you've got your kids at home with you and all the things that we're experiencing there. But as you know, the drill here, we want to make this an interactive experience. So I want you to be able to opt in to the poll. And so we'll need you to text the word WIRED to 494949 today. We're going to start off with some polling, and then if we have time, we're going to do some trivia at the end and give away, of course, some gift cards. You know, I try to make sure that everyone realizes I'm doing this as a one-man show today. So I am mixing all these different things and making sure that we can have an experience together today. So thank you for your grace. I am by no means an expert at this, but I have learned that the webinar is the new normal. And so if I can use our tools, our skills, and what we've learned at Remedy Live today, we want to make sure that we can help you. So again, text that word WIRED to 494949 so that you can participate with our conversation today. And we're going to get started with a question that will kind of help me set the tone a little bit as to where we're at in regards to last week versus this week. It's going to help me to kind of see if you were a part of our experience last week. So perhaps you can answer this question right off the top. Were you a part of WIREDx last week? I don't want to repeat myself with some of the issues that I pointed out with our time together, but it would be helpful for me to know if we've got some newbies in the crowd today watching this, and if you're new to the WIREDx experience, it's important that I can kind of bring you up to speed a little bit on what we're going to be doing today. And it seems like as I look at the data here, we've got kind of a 50-50 split, which is fantastic. That means that I can take some time to kind of focus a little bit on what we discussed last week, and also take some time to introduce you to some new topics this week in regards to working from home with kids. The biggest thing that we're going to discuss today is how to make sure you're taking care of yourself in the midst of this crazy storm. And Remedy Live has been committed to mental health conversations for some time now. In the last decade, we've been using technology and creating technology to make sure that people can have meaningful conversations. And we're so grateful for the partnerships that we've had with Three Rivers and the Lutheran Foundation, our own partnership with the Textric Solutions in helping us develop this software to be able to interact with our audience. And so we're grateful today to have you participating in this experience. You know, again, the coronavirus has really caused us to have to think differently about the way that we do life. So many of us now are trying to figure out the new normal. And many people have been sent home to work. And that's kind of one of our focal points today is how do we navigate working from home and still being a great parent, and still being available to our kids to engage them when they need us, and making sure that we're doing all that we can to still be productive in the workplace, and where are the boundaries there. And so today we're going to talk about that. We're going to have that conversation. We're going to talk a little bit about the mental health in the midst of that, because mental health is something we all have. We all have a brain. We all have mental health just like we have physical health. But today it's important to recognize that the situations we're in when we're working from home, and the stress of being in charge of distance learning if our kids are in school, and then on top of that, trying to figure out how to meet deadlines and still do our job description that we were hired for, that you were hired for at Three Rivers. How do we balance all that, stay above the water line, and not drown? And so my hope today is that I can give you some guidance and some tips, but I just want to be very clear. I'm learning this as you are. I'm a parent. I'm blessed to have 4 incredible kids. My wife and I are incredibly blessed, and I'm even more blessed in that I get to stay down here in this basement and produce events like this while my wife does the real hard work of caring for our children during the day and helping be the principal and the gym teacher and also, and sometimes maybe the police officer. But we are in this together, and we know as you are out there watching that you're probably struggling just as much as we are. And we want to make sure that we know that we're not alone, that we're in this indeed together. So I want to ask the next question in the poll that would kind of help me understand this. And I kind of know the answer already, but it's important for me to kind of understand a little bit too. Are you indeed working at home with your kids? And I'm assuming that we're going to see most of you say yes to this, and that's why you're enlisted with this webinar. But it's important for me to kind of get a sense if we've got some people watching that maybe aren't, but they're curious about the topic, maybe how they can support maybe others that are dealing with this issue and trying to have that balance. And looks like we've maybe got a few of you that aren't working from home, but most of you definitely are. And so again, I think we're in good company today as we have this conversation about this topic of the balance between this. And so my next question, what I want to do is I want to ask you specifically now about the season that we're in. And, parenting is difficult even in the best of cases. It's difficult because it requires so much of those key humility areas that we don't always have. And yet sometimes we're parenting alone because of a single parent situation. And my heart goes out to you. I was raised by a single mom. I understand the struggles that you're up against, but I do want to understand a little bit in regards to where you're at in the situation. And if you don't understand the question, maybe what I'll do is I'll pop it up on the screen, but I'll give you a chance to kind of work through some of the answers. And this is the question, regarding this season. Are you parenting alone, or do you share parenting work at home with your spouse? And as you look through those options, you can see that, maybe A, you're parenting with your spouse, they're in this with you. It's 50-50. You're doing all that you can today together to work and to parent and to teach and be all those things. But maybe B, you're parenting alone without a spouse. Maybe you are in a single parent situation, or perhaps your spouse is working from home, but they're not helping. They're kind of like me. I'm down in the basement. My wife's doing all of it upstairs by herself. Or D, my spouse works outside the home and I'm parenting alone. So they're out doing what they do. Maybe they're involved in healthcare. Maybe they're involved in utility work, so some of that necessary work. Or E, you have help with healthcare when you need it. And this is what you're saying as we break down your answers. It looks like the largest group is you're parenting alone without a spouse, which is, so my heart goes out to you again because of my experience as a child watching my mom navigate how to parent even in the best of times, pre-COVID-19, pre-coronavirus, pre-distance learning, and all the things that we have to deal with right now. It looks like we got 25% of you parenting with your spouse, so that's great. And then 25% where your spouse is outside the home and you're parenting alone. So in many ways, you're up against this thing yourself. And of course, I'm sure you got the support of your spouse, but you're still in it by yourself throughout the day. And then 8% of you saying that you've got somebody who is coming alongside you. Maybe it's some in-laws, or maybe it's your parents, or maybe it's some child care provider. And then F, something else that perhaps I missed in the options there. All right. Well, let's keep going. I'd like to know a little bit more as well about the age of your children, because this is important for me to kind of get an idea as to what the breakdown is. Now, this is a multiple option question if I set it up properly. And so I want to make sure that we have a chance here to be able to see, what age of children you have. You've got A, less than 1 year, B, 2 to 4 years. And again, if you've got multiple children, you could type B and click send, then you could type D and then click send. And this just helps us to be able to see how many different age ranges we've got out there when it comes to the age of the children that you have in your care. And you'll hear me talk today about how the most important thing that I want to share with you is that being a parent is the best thing in the world. It's an honor, it's a gift, it's a privilege. And so these children, these little ones, are so important to us. And some of these little ones aren't so little, are they? They're teenagers. I see 19% of you navigating those teen years, and then 13% the tween/teen years. 29% with 7 to 11-year-olds, some of you with 5 to 6-year-olds, and then we get into those younger kids that demand a little bit more of us, those 2 to 4 years, and then some of you with newbies, some newborns perhaps, less than a year old. So thank you again for your answers and helping us kind of understand, where you're coming from and the age group. It helps me to understand the breakdown that as I talk today, I know that I'm going to have to give you some suggestions in regards to just looking at this big picture, because we have such a unique mix of age groups represented among your children. And I think that's wonderful. Again, I believe parenting is a gift. I believe it's a privilege. I believe it's something that we should really take mind of, because parenting is the one thing I can tell you, it's forever. you will always be a parent. And there's a special, special, special bond between a parent and their child. Well, I'm going to ask you now a little bit about the difficulty of this season. And again, this is probably a redundant question, but are you finding it difficult right now to work from home with your kids? Are you finding it hard? Perhaps you're watching this just because you're interested in the topic, but I do want to know, is this become easy for you to navigate because you just know that this, you know how to do this, or is it become something that's difficult? And as you look at your answers coming in, it looks like we're kind of mixed up there in the middle a little bit. Half of us feeling like it is difficult, and half of us feeling like it isn't. And again, that's important for me to know, because the things I'm going to share with you today are not magic bullets. They're not going to fix anything. They're not going to cure every detail you've got going on right now. But I hope I can encourage you and bring some clarity to our situation that can help us to be able to see differently about the opportunity that we have ahead of us. And I just want to say for the record how blessed I was to be able to have L.A. Herons on my Wired podcast recently, and just how much I just heard her heart as the Chief Culture Officer for Three Rivers say how much she cares about you and about the family of Three Rivers. So again, just so blessed to be able to be a part of what's going on here today and having this conversation and making sure that we're navigating this together. Okay, so let's go into some specifics. And this is by no means an exhaustive list, but this helps us to kind of be honest about perhaps some of the specifics of what it is that we're finding the most difficult. Again, I think you should be able to just choose one here. I'm asking you to choose the worst one for you currently. I know you could probably choose a bunch, but if you were to look at that list, what's the one thing on that list that's causing you the most difficulty, that balance issue? What is it of all those opportunities there that are on the screen is it's causing you the most struggle right now? And again, as you look at your answers here, I want to be able to give us a chance to read through them, because there's quite a few there on the list. It looks like we've got some neck and necks here representing kind of all the different groups. The distance learning, of course, is a brand new fatigue for us, right? And then the noise, the distraction, the loudness, the craziness of kids running around all the time and perhaps just acting their age, having fun, because that's what kids do. But the fatigue, that's the word I'm using lately, the fatigue, it's more than a tiredness, it's a mental fatigue. And then that no personal time, we see that. And then just a feeling of being overwhelmed. And if you weren't with us with the WIREDx last week, I talked about anxiety and how anxiety is this overwhelming fear of the future, this overwhelming sense, even in the present, of just this overwhelming kind of pressure upon us. And so all these things that I talk about today, I want to be very clear that if you find yourself in a place of unhealth, where you know that the anxiety now is overwhelming you, that you're starting to feel panicky, that you're starting to feel short of breath, and you're starting to feel like you're going to have a heart attack, because that's kind of what panic attacks feel like, that you take advantage of the Bone Center Employment Assistance Program that Three Rivers has. I know these people at Bone Center. I love them. I work with them a lot in their school programs. And with the Wired experiences, and I just really want to recommend that you take advantage of these great people because they are indeed there to help. And the last thing I want to ask, it's kind of an open-ended question, but I want to ask you in regards to some of the ideas. And I'm going to give you some time to answer this question, but what ideas have you found that have been helping manage the kids and the job during the coronavirus? This is where you actually can help us, help each other, I should say. And so by all means, give your suggestions, and I'm going to watch them come in here a little bit while I do a little bit of not teaching, because I don't think that's the right term, but encouraging here over these next few minutes. But go ahead and answer that question if you could with a short sentence, and I'll come back to that here in a little bit. Well, again, so grateful for the opportunity to tackle this subject, and I love it because I'm a parent. And next to my marriage, next to being blessed to have an incredible wife that is in this with me all the way, I have the incredible privilege of having the 4 children that I get to shape and mold and lead and love and nurture and all those things. And I have a tendency for workaholism. I have a tendency to give myself to task. I have a tendency to give my family the rest rather than my best. I didn't know that. And so I have built in systems into my mind, into my world, and I've brought people into my world to kick my butt and to make sure that I don't forget that my family is forever. That the jobs I will have in my life, they will be temporary, they will come, they will go. And I'm not trying to throw Three Rivers under the bus. It's an organization that I absolutely adore. And yet the truth of it is very few of us will work our entire lives at one company anymore. It doesn't mean we shouldn't give our best, but we also shouldn't give our family the rest, right? We should give our family our best, and we should give the workplace what we can give them in regards to excellence and being well groomed and focused on our job tasks and the things that we have to do. But our kids, those are little people. Those are people that have a future as well. And they're recording all the things that we say, all the things that we do, all the things that we are focused on and make important to us. And so what I do is I want to walk through some of the steps that I hope can encourage you here today in this conversation. And the first thing I want to just say is that I believe in a no shame zone when it comes to parenting. I believe in a no shame zone. I think that what we see oftentimes when it comes to parenting is this feeling like we're just not doing enough. We're not making it happen. We're not good enough. And that shame pushes us into a place of guilt. It pushes us into a place of condemnation. It pushes us into believing that we're just not good enough. We're just not good enough. And the reality is that, we're all trying to figure this out. We're all trying to figure out how to get along and how to do this balance of work and parenting and in social isolation and birthday parties and all of the above. It's just all brand new, right? This is unprecedented. This is absolutely unprecedented. This is a once in a lifetime experience that will shape us, but will more importantly shape your kids. If your child's old enough, they will remember this the rest of their life. They'll remember this season, and Lord willing, this is just a season, right? But that's part of it as well. We don't know. We don't know what the new normal is going to be like. We don't understand the future because we're not experts, and of course, we can't predict the future. And so we really have to rely on the fact that, yes, this is unprecedented, but we should not be ashamed in the midst of this. Now, I want to say, we should be doing all that we can, and that's why today is so important. Shame often comes from someone doing their best, but believing a lie in their brain that they're not good enough, or that they're not meeting the bar, making the bar. There's a big difference between that, though, and a parent who is a bad parent and is choosing to be involved in things other than their children's lives and to focus on things that are not going to benefit their long-term future and their family's future. But shame often comes even from the best of parents believing lies. And what we know now, of course, with social isolation is that isolation diminishes impact. We know that isolation diminishes impact. And so now we're up against this reality that, as we go into this next season, the more isolated we are and pulling away from community and pulling away from talking about our struggles, we believe and we live in shame. We believe that we're no good. And again, I talked about last week with the WIREDx that mental illness, it translates all of our surroundings and all of our relationships. It's always doing that. And if we're believing shame statements, then we begin to sink into a belief that we're not good at parenting, that we're not good at life, we're not good at work, we're just not good. Or we're not good at parenting, but we're really good at providing mortgages. We're really good at working at Three Rivers. And so we throw ourselves into our work because we're really bad parents. And that's just a lie. No parent is perfect, and that's why we need to realize we can't live in shame. We've got to live in courage, and we got to recognize that that's a very important thing. Now I'm gonna look through the list here a little bit. There's so many great suggestions that are coming in. Some ideas. My kid has to knock before coming into the office. I'm going to just maybe pop these up on the screen a little bit and see if we can take a look at them. My kid has to knock before coming into the office. That's a great one. Preparing snacks the day before. Great suggestion. Scheduled start times, break times, lunch together. Having a designated workplace. I love these. These are really consistent with what I want to share with you today. Setting expectations with the kids for the workday. Structure outdoor time. Try not to feel guilt on extra screen time when needed. These are so good.
Keeping my daughter with special needs busy with games, art, and some daily chores. Intentionally breaking for a 10-minute meditation, absolutely central. Breathing, centering, and if you're a passionate faith person, then praying as well and asking for strength. Create an I'm bored list, and when the kids tell me there's nothing to do, I direct them to the I'm bored. I love that. We're going to use that for sure. Taking my lunch to connect with my kids, have lunch with them, and see what needs done for schoolwork, and then work hours here and thought throughout the day, night until done, and entertain kids in between. Great, that's fantastic. I just absolutely love these. These are so good. Thank you so much for sharing those. That's exactly what I was hoping that you'd do, is help one another. And these are great suggestions, and we'll provide these a little later on. Maybe I can put them on a document and email them out to you. So I want to make sure I can do that. What I want to do now is I'm going to advance the poll a little bit, and now I'm going to give you an opportunity to submit some questions throughout the rest of our time. So if you've got a question, go ahead and submit that, and I'll see that coming into the polling here, and I can actually hopefully respond before the end of our time. We've got about 10 minutes left. The next thing I wanted to talk about is the importance to communicate. We need to communicate. We need to talk. And I know that we could say that communication is when we're choosing to use texting and when we're choosing to send out messages via our smartphone. But the reality is that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about actually using this thing on your face called your mouth to verbalize what it is that's going on in your heart right now. Because the reality is, if we don't communicate, we have some problems, because we need clear expectations with your boss. We need to understand what they need from us. Now, this is where the conversation needs to be very, very transparent. If you are struggling, you need to convey that to your boss. You need to tell them, this is just too hard for me right now. I have a staff member right now that's just being really honest with me about that fatigue I talked about earlier. And for me to understand that, I can support her, and I can come alongside her. So clear expectations are so important. Clear expectations with your family. What you expect of them. And you had some great ones and suggestions there in that last polling question of how to create those expectations with your family. And then clear expectations with yourself. Again, that's kind of back to the shame issue, but make sure that you know what you are capable of. What you could do back in the day, a month and a half ago. Don't measure yourself with the same ruler. It's a different season now. It's harder on so many levels, because we just do not have the mechanisms in place anymore to be able to say this is the way it was. We have to create new normal. We have to figure out how to work at different times. We have to figure out the difference in the daytime 9 to 5 and the nighttime. That all blends in now. We have to figure out how to maximize our time, and I'm going to get to that here in a second. Next, I think is so important is to give yourself and others grace. To give yourself and others grace. And grace, of course, is not deserved. I think at the end of the day, we'd all admit that there are times when we make horrible, horrible mistakes. And we also know that the kids in our lives make horrible mistakes. We know our boss makes horrible mistakes. But we still have to give grace, because we all want grace. We all want to be given grace. And we deserve punishment at times because we've done wrong, but we have to give grace right now. We have to give a lot of grace. And as we think about grace, we have to think about the fact that around grace comes a change of heart about our situation, about the people around us. Your kids will always be yours. They will always be your children. And I just can't say that enough. That might seem redundant. And if you have a hard heart, if you are bent out of shape towards your children right now, especially those teen children that we saw earlier in the poll, it can become easy to become bitter at our kids because they're not respectful, they're not thankful, they don't maybe realize the severity of the coronavirus, and they just want to go out and hang out with their friends and take the keys to the car and go to the mall that won't let them in. But we have to provide grace because our kids will always be ours. Because what we do now ripples into the future. What we do now during this coronavirus will set the mark for days, weeks, months, and years ahead. We have opportunities right now to do some incredible, incredible good with our children, with our families, and to make sure that we're taking advantage of this time. Perfection isn't possible, and that's why grace is so necessary. We all make mistakes. We all fall short of that perfect ruler, and it's just not possible for us to be perfect. We just can't. Nobody can. And that's why we absolutely need to be able to give grace during this season and make sure that we're benefiting from giving grace to the others around us. Well, the next thing, again, we brought this up. I saw you guys bring this up in your suggestions, to plan and create clear boundaries. We absolutely need to do that. We need clear boundaries in our lives. We need to know what we can do, when we can do it. Like, we're going to work from this time to this time. And kids, I need a half an hour right now to do this. I need to figure this out. But one of the biggest things I'm learning is that we got to get out of and we got to go to bed a little earlier. We probably need to sneak out of bed a little bit earlier and maximize those hours before our kids are awake. And then we definitely need to get to bed earlier rather than staying up till 1 o'clock binging on Netflix. We've got to make sure that we do everything we can to care for this brain. I talked a little bit last week about the importance of sleep to the brain. In fact, overwhelming anxiety oftentimes wants to fight against the brain getting recharged during a deep sleep cycle. And yet we have to fight that. We got to choose to sleep. We have to choose to do everything we can to get a good night's sleep. So putting our kids to bed a little bit earlier to make sure that we can get the sleep that we need as well to be able to refresh and recharge the brain. We need to give our kids these clear expectations. And we saw that in your answers as well. And reward. This is a great time for us to make screen time actually something that they earn. So cleaning around the house, getting their room in the right ship shape, doing chores, doing their homework assignments and getting them done in a timely manner gives them a half an hour or an hour of screen time or Fortnite or whatever it is, but have them earn that. And what we're finding is that when you reward your child, they look forward to that and they actually work harder to earn those rewards rather than just being given those things for free. And so make sure that you're creating those expectations, but also providing those rewards. And then build in self-care. Exercise, a bath perhaps, but make sure that you're doing that to care for yourself because that's going to refresh and that's going to bring you some energy to be able to navigate this because you're going to feel again that you're feeding that soul that you need to feed because we do need self-care. We need to be able to take care of ourselves during this next season. And then next, make accountability with another parent. Find another parent, give them a call and let them know that you just want to have a real transparent dialogue about this season with them and you want to keep honest about this. We want to have accountability so that we can be vulnerable. We want to be vulnerable. We need to be vulnerable, I should say. We need to tell them this is why it's hard. This is what I'm struggling with. And you're not saying it because you want necessarily anybody to give you this solution. You want to give that permission to vent and just get it out. Make sure that it's just said. You want to get it off your chest. And we often feel better when we can just vent to someone who's safe. We want to encourage each other that we got this because we do have this. We got this, but we need each other so much right now. And then the next thing I want to suggest to you is something that my wife and I have learned so much over the last 16 years of marriage, and it's the most popular F word around the Foppel household. It's forgive. Forgive often. Forgive often. Make sure that we're forgiving one another. Make sure that we're helping each other understand it. And I'm going to throw all these three in there together. That we are choosing to humble ourselves. This isn't a competition. We're in this together. Forgive our children. If I say something or do something, I want to make it right. I don't want the sun to set before reconciling with my child or with my spouse because bitterness grows in there. A grudge begins to develop, and I call it a hairball. It starts to block the ability for us to function as a family because there's all these outliers of bad choices and bad things said and words said and actions done. And we just need to forgive each other. We need to make sure that we're focused on that. And then next, we've got to play the long game. We got to make sure that we realize that the long game is key here. You've got a lot of years ahead of you with these children, and we have to do everything we can during this season to play that long game. That we're doing all that we can to make sure that we understand that, this will pass. And I don't know what that means. I don't know if that means it's going to be different, if it's going to be harder, if it's going to be better. But what we're in the midst of right now is going to pass, and we have to learn from what we're going through right now. We have to realize that our family is forever. It's absolutely forever. And, hope is believing in something bigger than yourself. And we need to have that hope right now. We need to have that hope in what we're going through, that there's something bigger than us that can lead us through this, that we can believe in that. And I just wholeheartedly know that for me, having hope, it pulls me through these difficult situations. And then my last challenge to you is that we would maximize, that we would take advantage of this season. As I look at this important thing, time is finite. We can't get it back. So take advantage of this time. Invest this time in your future. Invest this time in your children's future, in your family. Time is finite. It keeps on slipping into the future. And when you get a moment, take a moment. Take a moment to rest, but also take a moment to work. When you get a moment, take a moment. Don't procrastinate. Again, back to that boundaries and those expectations, but maximize the moments that you've been given. Maximize the moments. And then lastly, weekends still mean something. Weekends are super important. And I would say that you do everything you can to really, take care of yourself on the weekends. We call the weekend Sabbath time because we just want to rest. We want to recharge. We do some different things, do some yard work and whatnot. But the reality is we need to recharge ourselves and get through this. And so I'm looking at some of the questions that have come in, and you guys are being so kind, so kind in your comments. What I want to do is I want to make sure that we end here now on time. We're going to do this for a half an hour today, and I'm so grateful for this opportunity to serve you. Like usual, I want to give you a chance as we close and end our time to give me some thoughts about this. And so if you could, just let me know what you thought of today. Give me a rating, if you will. I can take it. I want to continue to improve the WIREDx experiences and the different topics that we're doing. So help me out by giving me a letter grade, so to speak, so that I can be able to continue to improve this. In a second here, I'm going to give you a chance as well to be able to provide some specific feedback via some sentences or two as to things you'd like me to add, even to this specific topic today. But we would really want that from you because again, we want to improve these programs and these webinars to serve the population, to serve businesses. And if we can serve you, again, not only at Three Rivers, but if you're part of an organization, if you're part of a church, if you're part of a place that could really use some encouragement right now, we want to be able to do that via our technology and to be able to help and support the people that you have relationship with. And so this last question before we end our time together is this, what type of feedback do you have? Maybe a sentence or two that you can share with me that would help me again to improve our program and to be able to take this to the next level to support those around us. Friends, it has been so important for me to do this particular topic. I want to thank LA and my friend Chris Mulkey there at Three Rivers for helping us to put this together. They care about you. You matter. I want to remind you the Bowen Center exists to help you. There's a great employment assistance program. If you're finding yourself fatigued, just take advantage of it. You got so many great free sessions for you and free sessions for your children available through Bowen Center right now and the Three Rivers EAP. So take advantage of that because, again, you matter and it's important that you take advantage of the opportunities available to you. Guys, thanks for your honesty. I'm going to end the poll here in a little bit. I appreciate so much you spending some time with us here today, and we'll talk again soon.